The morning sun cast long shadows across the police academy's outdoor firing range as 37 recruits filed into position. The air was thick with nervous energy and the sharp scent of gun oil. Today marked their first advanced marksmanship evaluation, and everyone knew it could make or break their chances of graduating from the program. Sarah Chun adjusted her shooting stance, ignoring the whispered conversations around her. At 28, she was older than most of the other recruits, and her quiet demeanor often made her a target for speculation. She had joined the academy 6 months ago after what she described simply as a career change, but she never elaborated on what that career had been. "All right, listen up," Sergeant Martinez barked, his voice cutting through the morning chatter. A 20-year veteran of the force with arms like tree trunks and a permanently stern expression, he commanded instant attention. "Today we're testing your precision shooting. 5 targets, 5 shots each at varying distances from 50 to 200 yards. This isn't just about hitting the target. We're looking for grouping, accuracy under pressure, and consistency." The recruits shifted nervously. Advanced marksmanship was notoriously difficult, and several previous classes had seen significant washouts during this particular test. The police academy standards were high, and there was no room for poor performance when lives could depend on split-second accuracy. Martinez continued his briefing, pacing in front of the line of recruits. "You'll be shooting in groups of 5. Each group will have exactly 15 minutes to complete all targets. No do-overs, no second chances. Your scores today will count for 30% of your overall firearms qualification." Jake Morrison, a former college football player whose muscular frame filled out his academy uniform impressively, leaned toward his buddy Rick Valdez. "Think the quiet girl can handle this?" he whispered, nodding slightly toward Sarah. "She looks like she'd be more comfortable in a library than on a shooting range." Rick smirked. "My money's on her washing out today. She's been flying under the radar for months, but this is where the real cops get separated from the wannabes." Their conversation wasn't as quiet as they thought. Several other recruits had overheard, and soon small groups were forming their own whispered assessments of who would succeed and who would fail. Sarah's name came up frequently in the latter category. Tommy Rodriguez, a former security guard hoping to make the jump to law enforcement, shook his head as he watched Sarah methodically checking her equipment. "I don't get why they even let her into the program. She's maybe 5'4" and looks like a strong wind could knock her over. What's she going to do when she faces down some 200-pound criminal? Maybe she's got family connections," suggested Maria Santos, adjusting her protective eyewear. "That's the only way I can figure she's made it this far without standing out in any of the physical challenges." The speculation wasn't entirely unfair. Sarah had indeed kept a low profile throughout the academy training. During defensive tactics classes, she demonstrated solid technique, but nothing spectacular. In pursuit runs, she finished in the middle of the pack. During classroom sessions on law and procedure, she participated just enough to avoid attention, but never volunteered answers or insights that might reveal more about her background. What her fellow recruits didn't know was that Sarah's quiet observation was entirely intentional. Years of specialized training had taught her the value of assessing situations thoroughly before acting. She had been studying not just the academy curriculum, but her classmates as well, understanding their strengths, weaknesses, and motivations. Martinez called the first group forward. "Morrison, Valdez, Santos, Patterson, and Williams, you're up. Everyone else, take a seat on the bench and observe. You might learn something." The first 5 recruits moved to the firing line, their nervousness palpable. This was the moment many had been dreading since starting the academy. Police work demanded accuracy under pressure, and the ability to place shots precisely could mean the difference between protecting innocent lives and creating a dangerous situation. Sarah settled onto the bench with the remaining recruits, her expression calm and focused. She watched as each member of the first group approached their assigned firing position, noting their stance, breathing patterns, and grip on their service weapons. Years of training had made such observation automatic for her. The targets were set up at increasing distances, starting with a standard silhouette at 50 yards and progressing to smaller precision targets at 100, 150, and 200 yards. The final target was a bullseye no larger than a dinner plate at maximum range, a shot that would challenge even experienced marksmen. Jake Morrison stepped up to the line first, his confidence evident in his swagger. He had been one of the top performers in most academy exercises, and his competitive nature had made him something of a leader among the recruits. He raised his Glock 17, took careful aim at the 50-yard target, and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out across the range, and a moment later came the call, hit, outer ring. Not perfect, but solid for the opening shot. Morrison moved through the remaining 4 targets with steady precision, scoring 3 more hits in the target area and 1 complete miss on the long shot. His performance was respectable, but not exceptional. Rick Valdez followed with similar results, managing 4 hits out of 5 shots, but struggling with the distant targets. Maria Santos surprised everyone by placing 4 shots in the scoring rings, missing only the final precision target. As each group completed their trial, patterns emerged. The closer targets posed little challenge for most recruits. Basic police academy training prepared officers for standard engagement distances. But as the range increased, performance dropped significantly. The longest shots required not just accuracy, but understanding of wind compensation, breathing control, and advanced shooting fundamentals that most civilian recruits had never learned. Group 2, you're up. Martinez called. Chun, Rodriguez, Walsh, Foster, and Bryant moved to the line. Sarah rose from the bench, her movements fluid and controlled. She had been watching the wind patterns, noting how shots were drifting slightly to the left due to a consistent breeze from the southwest. She had observed the lighting conditions and how the morning sun was creating slight shadows that could affect sight picture. Most importantly, she had been mentally rehearsing her shooting sequence, visualizing each shot before she took it. As she approached the firing line, the whispered conversations among the remaining recruits intensified. "Think she'll even hit the target?" someone muttered. $50 says she doesn't make it past the 100-yard mark, another voice added. "Think she'll miss?" The question came from Jake Morrison, who was now sitting with the completed first group. His tone carried a mixture of skepticism and anticipation, as if he was looking forward to being proven right about Sarah's limitations. Tommy Rodriguez, standing next to Sarah at the firing line, glanced over at her with barely concealed doubt. He had been hoping to pair with stronger performers for this evaluation, and he worried that being grouped with someone he expected to fail might somehow reflect poorly on his own performance. Sergeant Martinez raised his hand for silence. "Range is hot. Shooters, you may commence when ready. Remember, precision and control. Take your time, but stay within your 15-minute window." Sarah stepped up to her position and drew her sidearm. The Glock 17 felt familiar in her hands, though it was different from the weapon she had trained with extensively in her previous career. She had spent countless hours during academy training familiarizing herself with this specific firearm, understanding its trigger pull, sight alignment, and recoil characteristics. The first target seemed almost insultingly easy at 50 yards. Sarah raised her weapon, controlled her breathing, and settled into a shooting stance that looked textbook perfect to the casual observer. What wasn't immediately apparent was the subtle modifications to her grip and stance that came from years of training in far more challenging environments. She squeezed the trigger with steady pressure, following through completely before assessing the result. The shot felt perfect from the moment it left the barrel. "Hit, center ring," came the call from the range officer monitoring the targets. Sarah moved smoothly to the second position. 100 yards presented more challenges, but she had regularly engaged targets at much greater distances under far more stressful conditions. She made minute adjustments for wind and distance, settled her breathing, and fired. Hit, center ring. By the time she moved to the third position at 150 yards, even the skeptical recruits had begun to pay closer attention. Sarah's movements were economical and precise, with none of the nervous energy or hesitation that had marked most other shooters. She seemed completely at ease, as if this level of precision shooting was routine for her. The third shot struck home with the same accuracy as the first two. Hit center ring. At 200 yards, the target became significantly more challenging. The precision required at this distance separated recreational shooters from true marksmen. Wind effects were more pronounced, and even small errors in form or sight alignment could result in complete misses. Sarah took slightly longer to settle into position for this shot. She observed the wind indicators more carefully, made fractional adjustments to her aim point, and controlled her breathing with the discipline of someone who had learned that patience and precision were often the difference between success and failure. The fourth shot flew true. Hit center ring. A hush had fallen over the other recruits. Even Sergeant Martinez was watching with increased attention. For perfect shots were unusual for police academy recruits. The level of consistency Sarah was demonstrating suggested training far beyond what most civilians receive before entering law enforcement. The final target was the ultimate challenge, a bullseye target no larger than a dinner plate at maximum range. This shot had defeated most of the previous groups entirely, and even successful hits were typically barely within the scoring rings. Sarah approached this final shot with the same methodical preparation as the others. She observed wind conditions, checked her sight picture multiple times, and controlled her breathing with practiced discipline. But there was something different about her focus now, an intensity that suggested this shot carried special meaning for her. In her mind, she was no longer at a police academy firing range. Years of muscle memory and training took over, and for a moment she was back in environments where missing wasn't just a poor score, it was a mission failure that could cost lives. She squeezed the trigger with the same smooth pressure as the previous 4 shots. The sound of the shot seemed to hang in the air longer than the others. Everyone on the range was watching now, waiting for the call from a range officer who was examining the distant target through high-powered binoculars. The pause stretched out, creating tension that was almost palpable. Several recruits held their breath, unable to believe what they might have just witnessed. Finally, the range officer's voice carried across the range, clear and unmistakable. Hit. Dead center bullseye. The silence that followed was complete. 32 recruits, 5 instructors, and various range personnel stared at Sarah as she calmly engaged the safety on her weapon and stepped back from the firing line. She had just accomplished something that many of them had never seen before. 5 perfect shots at increasing distances, culminating in a bullseye that would have impressed professional marksmen. Jake Morrison's mouth hung open slightly. His confident prediction about Sarah's failure suddenly seemed not just wrong, but embarrassingly naive. Around him, other recruits were exchanging glances of shock and newfound respect. Tommy Rodriguez, who had been dreading association with what he expected to be poor performance, now found himself wondering who exactly he had been training alongside for the past 6 months. The quiet woman who rarely spoke about her background had just demonstrated shooting skills that exceeded anything he had expected to see at the police academy. Sergeant Martinez was the first to break the silence. His gruff voice carried a note of professional appreciation that his recruits had rarely heard before. Outstanding shooting, Chun. That's the kind of precision we need to see from our officers. He paused, studying her with new interest. Where did you learn to shoot like that? Sarah holstered her weapon and met his gaze directly. Her voice was steady and matter-of-fact when she replied, I had good training, Sergeant. It was the same non-committal response she had given to previous questions about her background, but now it carried different weight. Good training had just produced a performance that most of the academy staff would have struggled to match. As the remaining groups prepared for their turns at the firing line, conversations buzzed with speculation about Sarah's background. The quiet recruit who had blended into the background for months had suddenly become the most interesting person in their class. But Sarah had already returned to the bench, settling back into her role as observer. She watched the subsequent groups with the same calm attention she had shown before, offering no commentary on her performance or explanation for her skills. What none of her fellow recruits could have guessed was that for Sarah, this morning's shooting exercise had been one of the easiest challenges she had faced in years. The controlled environment, stationary targets, and absence of return fire made it feel almost relaxing compared to the situations that had shaped her abilities. As the morning progressed, and more groups took their turns at the firing line, it became clear that Sarah's performance was not just exceptional. It was unique. No other recruit came close to matching her consistency and precision. A few managed 4 good shots out of 5, but none achieved the perfect score that Sarah had made look effortless. The whispered conversations among the recruits had taken on a different tone. Instead of doubting her capabilities, they were now intensely curious about her past. What kind of training produced that level of skill? Where had she learned to shoot with such precision? And why was she being so secretive about her background? Jake Morrison found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about his classmates. His assumption that physical appearance and outward confidence were reliable indicators of capability had been thoroughly challenged. The quiet woman who had seemed unremarkable was clearly anything but ordinary. As the morning shooting exercise concluded, Sergeant Martinez addressed the assembled recruits. Today's performance gives us a clear picture of where each of you stands in terms of marksmanship skills. Some of you exceeded expectations. Others have work to do before graduation. His eyes found Sarah in the group. Chun, see me after class. We need to discuss your training background for your file. Sarah nodded acknowledgement, her expression unchanged. She had known this moment would come eventually. Exceptional performance in any area would inevitably lead to questions about her past, and she had been preparing for those conversations since the day she decided to join the police academy. What she hadn't fully anticipated was how her shooting demonstration would change the dynamics within her recruit class. As they prepared to move to the next training exercise, she could feel the weight of 36 pairs of eyes watching her every move. The anonymity she had carefully maintained for 6 months was gone, replaced by intense curiosity and newfound respect. The morning had started with recruits doubting whether she could even hit the targets. It was ending with everyone wondering who she really was and what other surprises she might reveal before graduation. For Sarah, the challenge would no longer be proving she belonged in the police academy. Now she would have to decide how much of her real story she was willing to share, and whether the life she was trying to build could coexist with the shadows of her past. As the recruits filed off the firing range, the question that had started as skeptical mockery, "Think she'll miss?" had been answered definitively, but it had been replaced by far more complex questions about identity, capability, and the stories people carry with them when they choose to start over. The shooting exercise had lasted less than 2 hours, but it had fundamentally changed how Sarah Chun was seen by everyone around her. Whether that change would ultimately help or complicate her journey toward becoming a police officer remained to be seen. Sergeant Martinez's office felt smaller than usual with Sarah sitting across from his desk 2 hours after the shooting exercise. The walls were covered with commendations, training certificates, and photographs from his 2 decades in law enforcement, but his attention was focused entirely on the recruit file spread before him. Sarah Chun, he began, reading from the paperwork. Age 28, previously employed as a maritime security consultant. References from 3 different companies, all glowing recommendations for reliability and professionalism. He looked up at her, but none of them mentioned anything about advanced marksmanship training. Sarah sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. She had rehearsed this conversation many times, knowing that eventually someone would ask the right questions. The challenge was providing enough truth to satisfy curiosity without revealing details that could complicate her new life. Maritime security covers a lot of different responsibilities, Sergeant. Some positions required specialized training. Martinez leaned back in his chair. I've been training police recruits for 12 years, Chun. I've seen former military, competitive shooters, even a few folks who grew up on ranches where precision shooting was part of daily life. What I saw out there today was different. He pulled up a tablet and showed her the electronic scoring summary. 5 shots, 5 perfect hits. No warm-up, no practice rounds, no hesitation. You approached that firing line like you'd done it 1,000 times before under much more challenging circumstances. Sarah met his gaze directly. I had good instructors. Who were they? What branch of service? What training program? Your background check came back clean, but it's also remarkably thin for someone with your apparent skill level. The questions were fair, and Sarah had expected them, but the answers were complicated in ways that couldn't be easily explained in a police academy office. Her transition to civilian life had been carefully orchestrated to leave as few traces as possible of her previous career. I'm here because I want to serve the community as a police officer, she said finally. My previous experience included security work that required advanced training, but the specifics are covered by confidentiality agreements with former employers. It was true, as far as it went. The Navy had extensive protocols for protecting the identities and operational details of personnel transitioning from special operations units. Her discharge papers listed her military occupation specialty in vague terms that revealed nothing about her actual role or training. Martinez studied her for a long moment. Chun, I'm not trying to pry into classified information or create problems for you. But when a recruit demonstrates capabilities that exceed what we normally see, it raises questions about proper placement and training needs. He turned the tablet to show her comparative scores from recent academy classes. Your shooting performance today was better than 90% of our current patrol officers. It was better than most of our SWAT team members. That level of skill doesn't develop by accident. Sarah understood his position. Police academy instructors had to evaluate not just basic competency, but how to best utilize each recruit's existing strengths. Someone with advanced capabilities might be better suited for specialized units or accelerated training programs. What kind of questions are we talking about, Sergeant? The good kind mostly. Your overall academy performance has been solid, but unremarkable until today. Now I'm wondering what other capabilities you've been keeping under wraps. Martinez pulled up her complete training record. Defensive tactics meets standards but doesn't stand out. Physical fitness, consistently good but not exceptional. Academic performance, strong but not remarkable. Then you step up to a firing line and shoot like a professional. He leaned forward. Help me understand how to best prepare you for graduation and field assignment. If you got advanced training in other areas, we should know about it. The department has specialized units that could use someone with your apparent skill set. The conversation was heading exactly where Sarah had hoped to avoid. Specialized units meant increased scrutiny, higher profiles, and greater likelihood that someone would eventually recognize her from her previous life. She had joined the police academy specifically to blend into routine patrol duties, not to attract attention. I appreciate the opportunity, Sergeant, but I'm interested in standard patrol assignment after graduation. I want to start at the beginning and learn police work from the ground up. Martinez nodded slowly. That's admirable, but it might not be the best use of your abilities. Let me ask you this. Have you had advanced hand-to-hand combat training, tactical movement, combat driving? Because if your shooting skills are any indication, you might have capabilities that could benefit our emergency response teams. Each question struck closer to areas Sarah preferred to keep buried. Her SEAL training had included all of those specialties and more, but acknowledging any of them would invite further questions she couldn't answer honestly. I think my focus should be on learning standard police procedures and community policing techniques. That's where I want to build my career. Before Martinez could respond, there was a knock on his office door. Come in, he called. Captain Williams entered, her expression serious. At 45, she was the youngest captain in the department's history and had earned her position through a combination of exceptional police work and advanced education. She was also known for her ability to spot talent and potential in new recruits. Sergeant Martinez, I need to speak with you about this morning's shooting exercise. I've been reviewing the scores, and there's a significant anomaly I need to understand. Martinez gestured towards Sarah. Captain, meet the anomaly. Recruit Chun, this is Captain Williams, our training commander. Captain Williams studied Sarah with professional interest. Recruit Chun, I've looked at your performance data from today. 5 perfect shots at increasing distances, culminating in a bullseye at 200 yards. In 12 years of running this academy, I've never seen a recruit achieve that level of precision. Sarah stood at attention. Thank you, Captain. It's not necessarily a compliment yet, Williams said bluntly. Outstanding performance raises questions. Where did you learn to shoot like that? The same questions, now from someone with even more authority and experience. Sarah maintained her calm demeanor. Previous employment required advanced training, Captain. Williams glanced at Martinez, who shrugged. She's been consistent with that answer. Says her background includes maritime security work with confidentiality requirements. Maritime security, Williams repeated, studying Sarah more intently. That's an interesting field. Lots of different specializations within that industry. She paused. Some of them require very specific skill sets. Sarah sensed that Captain Williams understood more than she was saying directly. There was something in her tone that suggested familiarity with the kind of background that could produce Sarah's capabilities. Captain, if there are concerns about my academy performance or fitness for police work, I'm happy to address them. On the contrary, Recruit Chun, your performance today suggests capabilities that could be very valuable to this department. But they also raise questions about proper assignment and utilization. Williams pulled up a chair and sat down across from Sarah. Let me be direct with you. In my experience, the kind of shooting skills you demonstrated today don't come from civilian training programs. They come from military or federal law enforcement backgrounds that involve specialized operations. The room fell silent. Sarah realized that Captain Williams was giving her an opportunity to provide a more complete explanation, but also making it clear that she wasn't buying the maritime security explanation entirely. Your background check came back clean, Williams continued, but it's also remarkably sparse for someone who's obviously received extensive professional training. That suggests either sealed records or careful management of your transition to civilian life. Sarah chose her words carefully. Captain, I can assure you that I have no criminal background, no security issues, and no conflicts that would prevent me from serving effectively as a police officer. My previous training was legally obtained through legitimate channels, and I'm here because I want to use those skills in service to the community. It was the most she had revealed about her background since starting the academy, but it still avoided specific details about military service or special operations training. Williams nodded slowly. I appreciate your directness, Chun, and I'm not trying to force you to reveal information you're not comfortable sharing. But I need you to understand that exceptional performance sometimes creates opportunities and expectations that go beyond basic patrol duties. She stood and moved to the window overlooking the academy training grounds. This department has several specialized units that could benefit from someone with your apparent capabilities. SWAT, emergency response, tactical operations, federal task force liaison positions. All of them are looking for officers with advanced skills and proven performance under pressure. I understand, Captain, but I'm genuinely interested in learning standard police work. I want to understand community policing, routine patrol procedures, and basic law enforcement before considering specialized assignments. Williams turned back toward her. That's actually the answer of someone with significant experience who understands the value of building a foundation. Most recruits with advanced backgrounds want to jump straight to the exciting assignments. Martinez cleared his throat. Captain, how do you want to handle this? Chin's got 4 more months until graduation, and word about today's shooting is already spreading through the recruit class. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Your performance this morning has become the talk of the academy, Williams explained. Recruits don't typically achieve perfect scores on advanced marksmanship tests. By lunchtime, everyone from instructors to administrative staff had heard about the recruit who shot 5 perfect bullseyes. Sarah felt a sinking sensation. The last thing she wanted was to become the subject of academy gossip or speculation. Maintaining a low profile had been her primary strategy for transitioning successfully to civilian life. Captain, is there a way to address this without creating more attention? I prefer to finish my training without becoming a curiosity. Williams studied her with renewed interest. Most people with your level of skill would want the recognition and opportunities that come with it. The fact that you want to avoid attention tells me even more about your background." She returned to her seat. "Here's what we're going to do, Chun. You're going to continue your regular academy training without any special treatment or modified assignments. But I'm also going to have you evaluated by our tactical training instructor just to get a complete picture of your capabilities." "Is that necessary, Captain?" "It's standard procedure when a recruit demonstrates exceptional skills in any area. We need to understand the full scope of your training so we can make appropriate recommendations for your field assignment after graduation." Martinez added, "Chun, this isn't punishment or special scrutiny. It's recognition that you might have capabilities that could benefit the department in ways beyond basic patrol duties." Sarah realized she was in a difficult position. Refusing the evaluation would create suspicion and potentially jeopardize her chances of graduating. But participating might reveal more about her background than she wanted to share. "When would this evaluation take place?" "Tomorrow morning," Williams said. "Officer Davies will put you through some basic tactical assessments. Nothing too extensive, just enough to get a sense of your overall training level." "Understood, Captain." Williams stood. "Chun, I want you to know that whatever your background, you're welcome here as long as you're committed to serving ethically and professionally as a police officer. But exceptional capabilities come with responsibilities and sometimes opportunities that can't be ignored." After Captain Williams left, Sergeant Martinez remained seated across from Sarah. The office felt quiet after the intensity of the conversation with his superior. "Chun, can I give you some advice?" "Yes, Sergeant. Whatever you did before coming here, you're clearly qualified to be a police officer. But you're also qualified for much more than basic patrol duties. Don't be so quick to limit yourself out of modesty or a desire to stay under the radar." Sarah appreciated his concern, but he didn't understand her motivations. Staying under the radar wasn't about modesty. It was about survival and the possibility of building a normal life after years in environments where normal didn't exist. "I'll keep that in mind, Sergeant." As she left Martinez's office, Sarah reflected on how quickly her carefully maintained anonymity had been shattered. One morning of shooting had transformed her from an unremarkable recruit to the subject of academy speculation and administrative attention. Walking across the training grounds, she could feel the stares and whispered conversations of other recruits. Jake Morrison and his friends watched her with expressions of curiosity mixed with respect. Even instructors nodded acknowledgement as she passed, a level of recognition she hadn't received during 6 months of deliberately average performance. The transformation was both gratifying and concerning. Sarah had spent years learning to excel under pressure, but she had also learned the value of operating without attracting unnecessary attention. Her SEAL training had emphasized the importance of blending in, of being the gray man who accomplished missions without creating memorable impressions. Now she found herself in the opposite situation, highly visible, actively discussed, and subject to increased scrutiny from academy leadership. Tomorrow's tactical evaluation would likely reveal more about her capabilities, making it even harder to maintain the fiction that she was simply a former maritime security consultant with above-average training. As evening approached, Sarah sat in her small apartment reviewing the day's events. The shooting exercise had been intended as a routine evaluation of basic marksmanship skills. Instead, it had become the moment when her past and present collided in ways she couldn't control. The questions from Sergeant Martinez and Captain Williams had been professional and reasonable, but they represented the beginning of a process that could eventually expose details about her military service she preferred to keep private. Her transition to civilian life had been predicated on leaving her SEAL identity behind, but exceptional performance had a way of revealing itself regardless of intentions. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as Officer Davies evaluated her tactical capabilities. Sarah knew that trying to perform poorly would be both dishonest and potentially dangerous. If she was going to be a police officer, the department deserved to know her actual skill level. But she also knew that each demonstration of advanced training made it harder to maintain the careful fiction of her background story. The evening news played quietly in the background as Sarah considered her options. She could continue trying to minimize her capabilities and hoped to graduate without further scrutiny. She could embrace the opportunities that Captain Williams had mentioned and accept assignment to specialized units. Or she could withdraw from the academy and look for a different path to civilian life. None of the options were entirely appealing, but withdrawal seemed like giving up on the goal that had motivated her to leave military service in the first place. She wanted to serve the community in a different way, to use her skills for protection and justice without the complexity and secrecy of special operations. As she prepared for sleep, Sarah realized that tomorrow's tactical evaluation would likely determine the direction of her remaining time at the academy. Officer Davies had a reputation for thorough assessments and an ability to recognize advanced training regardless of how carefully someone tried to conceal it. The question was no longer whether her SEAL background would be discovered, but how much of it would be revealed and what consequences that revelation might bring. Her shooting performance had already answered the whispered question, "Think she'll miss?" with definitive authority. Tomorrow would determine what new questions would take its place. Officer Davies arrived at the Academy's tactical training facility before dawn, methodically setting up equipment and reviewing assessment protocols. At 52, he was a veteran of both military and police special operations, with an uncanny ability to recognize advanced training regardless of how someone tried to disguise it. Captain Williams had briefed him the evening before about Recruit Chen's shooting performance, and he was curious to discover what other capabilities might be hidden beneath her carefully maintained low profile. Sarah entered the facility at exactly 0600, as instructed. The Tactical Training Center was different from the standard academy classrooms and firing ranges designed to simulate real-world environments where split-second decisions and advanced skills could mean the difference between success and failure. Recruit Chen, I'm Officer Davies. Captain Williams asked me to conduct a comprehensive tactical assessment this morning. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to evaluating elite performers under pressure. I understand you had an exceptional shooting performance yesterday. Yes, sir. 5 hits at varying distances. Davies studied her carefully. What I'm curious about is whether that shooting performance was an isolated skill or part of a broader training background. Today we're going to find out. He led her to the first assessment station, a mock building entry scenario with multiple rooms, potential threat targets, and innocent bystanders. This exercise tests tactical movement, threat assessment, and decision-making under pressure. You'll move through this structure, identify threats, engage targets as appropriate, and protect civilians. Sarah surveyed the setup. It was similar to close-quarters battle training she had completed countless times during her SEAL career, though significantly less complex than the scenarios she had mastered. The challenge would be performing well enough to demonstrate competence without revealing the full extent of her capabilities. What's my mission objective, Officer Davies? Multiple hostiles have taken civilians hostage in this structure. You need to neutralize threats while minimizing risk to innocent parties. You'll be using simulated ammunition, but treat every aspect of this exercise as if lives depend on your performance. Davies handed her a modified duty weapon loaded with marking rounds. Questions: rules of engagement, standard police protocols, positive identification of threats, minimum necessary force. Protection of innocent life takes priority over everything else. He paused. Begin when ready. Sarah approached the structure's entry point, immediately falling into movement patterns that felt as natural as breathing. Her SEAL training had included countless hours of close-quarters combat in environments far more challenging than this academy simulation. But she forced herself to move at a pace appropriate for a police recruit rather than a special operations veteran. The first room contained 2 mannequin targets, one clearly armed and threatening a civilian figure, the other ambiguous. Sarah quickly identified the threat, engaged with 2 precise shots center mass, and moved to secure the civilian without exposing herself to additional danger from unseen areas. Davies was taking notes, but his expression revealed nothing about her performance so far. The second room presented a more complex scenario. Three figures were positioned at different locations, with varying degrees of threat posture and civilian proximity. Sarah had to make split-second decisions about engagement priorities while maintaining situational awareness of potential additional threats. She moved through the room with fluid efficiency, engaging armed targets in order of immediate danger while repositioning to protect civilians and maintain tactical advantage. Her movement patterns were economical and purposeful, minimizing exposure while maximizing effectiveness. Time. Davies called as Sarah secured the final room. 47 seconds total. 6 threat targets engaged, 0 civilian casualties. Textbook tactical movement throughout. Sarah safed her weapon and turned toward him, trying to read his assessment in his expression. Chun, I've been running these exercises for 8 years. I've seen former military, SWAT veterans, federal agents, and competitive shooters go through this course. Your performance was in the top 5% of everyone I've tested. The compliment was troubling rather than gratifying. Sarah had tried to moderate her performance while still demonstrating basic competence, but years of training were difficult to suppress under pressure. Thank you, Officer Davies. We're not done yet. The shooting exercise and room clearing were just the beginning. Let's see how you handle some other scenarios. Davies led her to a defensive tactics area equipped with various training tools and assessment equipment. Hand-to-hand combat evaluation. I'm going to have you work with different training partners of varying sizes and skill levels. We need to assess your defensive capabilities and control techniques. This was the evaluation Sarah had been most concerned about. Her SEAL training had included extensive martial arts and close combat instruction that went far beyond standard police defensive tactics. Demonstrating those skills would make it almost impossible to maintain her maritime security cover story. Officer Davies, I should mention that my previous training included some defensive tactics instruction, so I'm not starting completely from scratch. Good to know. Let's see what you remember. The first training partner was Jake Morrison, who had volunteered for the session after hearing about the special evaluation. At 6'2" and 220 pounds, he significantly outweighed Sarah and had been looking forward to proving that shooting skills didn't translate to physical confrontation abilities. Basic scenario, Davies explained. Morrison is an uncooperative suspect resisting arrest. Chun, you need to gain control and secure him using appropriate force levels. Morrison, give realistic resistance, but don't injure your partner. Morrison approached the exercise with confidence, expecting his size and strength advantages to quickly overwhelm the smaller recruit who had surprised everyone with her shooting. His strategy was straightforward. Use his physical advantages to control the engagement and demonstrate that yesterday's marksmanship had been a fluke. Sarah recognized his approach immediately. Larger, stronger opponents typically relied on power and aggression to overcome technique and training. Her SEAL instructors had drilled responses to this exact scenario until they became instinctive. As Morrison moved to grab her, Sarah used his momentum against him, redirecting his energy while simultaneously compromising his balance and positioning. Before he fully understood what had happened, he found himself face down on the training mat with Sarah controlling his movement through precise pressure points and leverage. The takedown had been swift, controlled, and efficient. Morrison had been neutralized without excessive force or injury, but also without any realistic chance to escape or continue resistance. Davies stopped the exercise. Time, 8 seconds. Textbook control techniques, minimal force applied, suspect secured effectively. He looked at Sarah with increased interest. Where exactly did you learn defensive tactics like that? Sarah helped Morrison to his feet. He looked stunned by how quickly and completely he had been controlled by someone significantly smaller than himself. Previous training included personal protection and restraint techniques, she said, maintaining her vague explanation. Personal protection training, Davies repeated. That's interesting. Let's try a different scenario. The next exercise involved multiple attackers, a situation that would test not just individual techniques, but tactical thinking, and situational awareness under pressure. Sarah was paired against two training partners who were instructed to coordinate their approach and overwhelm her through numbers and aggression. Sarah had faced similar training scenarios countless times during her military career, often with more attackers and more realistic consequences for failure. The key was controlling distance, timing, and positioning to prevent the attackers from using their numerical advantage effectively. As the two recruits approached, Sarah used movement and positioning to force them to attack sequentially rather than simultaneously. She engaged the first attacker with techniques that disabled him while positioning herself advantageously against the second. The engagement lasted less than 15 seconds and ended with both training partners controlled and secure. Davies called a halt to the exercise. Outstanding performance, Chun. Your defensive tactics capabilities are clearly well beyond basic academy level. By now, other instructors had begun gathering to observe the assessment. Word had spread quickly that the recruit who had shot perfect scores yesterday was demonstrating equally impressive capabilities in tactical scenarios. Captain Williams arrived just as Davies was setting up the final assessment, a complex scenario combining shooting, movement, tactical decision-making, and stress management under time pressure. How is she performing, Officer Davies? Captain, Recruit Chin's capabilities are exceptional across multiple areas. Shooting, tactical movement, hand-to-hand combat, situational awareness, stress management. Everything suggests extensive professional training well beyond what civilian programs typically provide. Williams watched as Sarah prepared for the final exercise. What's your assessment of her background? Military special operations or federal tactical training? Almost certainly. The movement patterns, combat techniques, and overall approach all suggest someone with significant experience in high-stress operational environments. The final assessment required Sarah to navigate a complex scenario involving multiple threats, civilian protection, tactical movement through various environments, and precision shooting under time pressure. It was designed to test the full range of skills that elite law enforcement units required. Sarah approached the exercise methodically, drawing on years of training in far more challenging environments. She moved through the scenario with confidence and efficiency, demonstrating capabilities that clearly exceeded standard police academy expectations. When the exercise concluded, the gathered instructors and administrators exchanged meaningful glances. Sarah's performance had been flawless across multiple assessment areas, revealing a level of training that couldn't be explained by maritime security work or civilian defensive tactics courses. Captain Williams stepped forward. Recruit Chun, Officer Davies, and I need to speak with you privately. In the small conference room adjacent to the tactical training area, Williams and Davies reviewed the assessment results while Sarah waited quietly. Chun, your performance today confirms what yesterday's shooting suggested. You have professional-level training in multiple tactical areas, Williams began. The combination of marksmanship, close-quarters combat, tactical movement, and stress management indicates military or federal training at an elite level. Davies added, your techniques, movement patterns, and decision-making processes all suggest special operations background. I worked with Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marine Force Recon, and other elite units. Your performance today matches what I would expect from those communities. Sarah realized that further denials or vague explanations would be counterproductive. Davies clearly recognized her training background, and attempting to maintain the fiction would only damage her credibility. Captain, if my background is creating concerns about my suitability for police work, I'm happy to address those directly. It's not creating concerns, Chun. It's creating opportunities and questions about how best to utilize your capabilities, Williams replied. But it's also raising questions about why someone with your apparent background is being so secretive about their training and experience. Sarah took a deep breath. Captain, I can confirm that I have military training. I completed my service honorably and transitioned to civilian life with the goal of using my skills in law enforcement. I prefer not to discuss specific details of my military service, but I can assure you there are no issues that would prevent me from serving effectively as a police officer. Williams nodded. That's the first direct confirmation you've given about military service. What branch? Navy, Captain. What rate? What units? What type of training? These were the questions Sarah had hoped to avoid, but Davies' assessment had made further evasion impossible. I serve in Naval Special Warfare. My training included the capabilities Officer Davies observed today. The room fell silent. Naval Special Warfare meant SEALs, one of the most elite military units in the world. It explained everything about Sarah's performance while raising entirely new questions about her transition to civilian life. How long did you serve? Davies asked. 8 years active duty. What was your rate when you discharged? Sarah hesitated. Her final rank would reveal the level of responsibility and leadership she had achieved, making it harder to maintain that she wanted only basic patrol duties. Petty Officer First Class. Williams and Davies exchanged glances. A Petty Officer First Class in Naval Special Warfare represented significant experience and proven leadership capabilities. Such personnel were typically selected for advanced training and high-responsibility assignments. Chun, why didn't you mention your SEAL background during the academy application process? Williams asked. I wanted to be evaluated based on my commitment to police work, not on assumptions about my military service. I'm here because I want to serve the community as a police officer, not because I'm looking for a way to continue military-style operations. Davies leaned forward. Your SEAL background explains your performance, but it also raises questions about why you're avoiding specialized assignments. Most veterans with your training seek positions that utilize their advanced capabilities. I spent 8 years in specialized assignments, Officer Davies. I joined the police academy because I want to learn a different way of serving, focused on community protection and civilian law enforcement rather than military operations. Williams considered this. Chun, I respect your desire to start fresh and learn police work from the foundation up. But your SEAL training represents capabilities that could benefit this department's specialized units and emergency response capabilities. I understand, Captain, but I'd like the opportunity to complete basic police training and gain patrol experience before considering specialized assignments. The conversation concluded with an agreement that Sarah would complete her academy training without special treatment, but with the understanding that her background would be factored into assignment decisions after graduation. Captain Williams made it clear that someone with SEAL training might not have the luxury of choosing routine patrol duties if the department's needs required her specialized skills. As Sarah left the tactical assessment facility, she reflected on how completely her cover had been blown in just 24 hours. Yesterday's shooting had raised suspicions. Today's tactical assessment had confirmed what experienced instructors already suspected. The carefully maintained anonymity of 6 months had been replaced by widespread knowledge that their quiet classmate was a former Navy SEAL. By evening, every recruit, instructor, and administrator at the academy would know the truth about Sarah Chen's background. Walking across the training grounds, Sarah noticed the change immediately. Conversations stopped when she approached. Recruits who had barely acknowledged her existence for months now watched her with mixtures of respect, curiosity, and intimidation. Jake Morrison approached her near the dormitory entrance. Sarah, I wanted to apologize for doubting your capabilities. I had no idea about your background. There's nothing to apologize for, Jake. You didn't have reason to know. Can I ask you something? Why didn't you tell anyone you were a SEAL? That's something to be proud of. Sarah considered her response carefully. I wanted to be judged as a police recruit, not as a former military operator. I'm here to learn a different way of serving. Morrison nodded, but she could see he didn't entirely understand. For most people, SEAL training represented the pinnacle of military achievement, something to highlight rather than hide. As evening approached, Sarah sat in her room reviewing the day's events. The tactical assessment had stripped away the last vestiges of anonymity she had maintained since joining the academy. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as her classmates and instructors adjusted to knowing the truth about her background. The question was no longer whether her SEAL identity would be discovered. It had been. Now the challenge was managing the expectations and opportunities that came with that revelation while staying focused on her goal of becoming a community police officer. Her shooting performance had answered the skeptical question, "Think she'll miss?" with absolute authority. Today's tactical assessment had answered follow-up questions about the breadth of her capabilities. Tomorrow would determine how her SEAL background would shape the remainder of her police academy experience and her future career in law enforcement. The next morning brought an unexpected summons to the office of Chief Robert Hawkins, the man who ultimately oversaw all academy operations and new recruit assignments. Sarah had never met the chief directly, but his reputation preceded him. 30 years in law enforcement, with experience ranging from patrol duties to federal task force leadership. His endorsement could make careers. His disapproval could end them. Chief Hawkins's office reflected his long career in law enforcement. Commendations and photographs covered the walls, documenting decades of service that had earned him respect throughout the region. Behind his desk hung a photograph of him with Navy SEAL teams during a joint training exercise early in his career, an image that took on new significance given the reason for this meeting. "Recruit Chun, please have a seat." His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected lives and careers. "I've reviewed yesterday's tactical assessment and your shooting performance from earlier this week. I've also had extensive conversations with Captain Williams and Officer Davies about their observations." Sarah sat at attention, unsure what direction this conversation would take. Meeting with the chief suggested that her SEAL background had implications beyond simple academy training considerations. "Let me be direct with you, Chun. Your performance over the past 2 days has been exceptional by any standard, but it's also raised questions that need to be addressed at the highest levels of this organization." Chief Hawkins opened a file on his desk. "Your military records arrived this morning through official channels. 8 years naval special warfare, multiple deployments, advanced training in specialized operations, honorable discharge with commendations for exceptional service." He looked up at her. "Why didn't any of this appear in your academy application materials?" Sarah had anticipated this question. "Chief, I requested that my detailed military records be kept separate from my police academy application. I wanted to be evaluated based on my commitment to civilian law enforcement, not on my previous military service. That's an unusual approach for someone with your background. Most military veterans, especially those with special operations experience, highlight their service during the application process. I respect that, Chief, but I had my reasons for taking a different approach." Hawkins studied her carefully. "Chun, your SEAL background presents both opportunities and challenges for this department. On one hand, you bring capabilities that could be invaluable for specialized operations, emergency response, and high-risk situations. On the other hand, your training and experience exceed what we normally see in new recruits by such a margin that standard assignment procedures may not apply." He leaned back in his chair. "Help me understand your goals here. With your background, you could have pursued federal law enforcement positions, private security roles with significantly higher pay, or specialized military contracting opportunities. Why did you choose a municipal police academy?" Sarah had rehearsed answers to this question many times, but she sensed that Chief Hawkins would recognize anything less than complete honesty. "Chief, after 8 years of military operations, I want to serve my community in a different way. Police work offers the opportunity to protect people and maintain justice without the complexities and secrecy of military special operations. I want to use my training to help people in visible, direct ways that contribute to community safety and well-being." "That's admirable, Chun, but it may not be realistic given your capabilities and this department's needs." Hawkins turned to a map on his wall showing the department's coverage area. "This region has seen increasing challenges that require advanced tactical capabilities. Drug trafficking, organized crime, potential terrorist threats, federal coordination requirements. All of these demand officers with specialized training and proven performance under pressure." He returned to his seat. Your SEAL background makes you uniquely qualified for assignments that other officers simply couldn't handle. The question becomes whether the department can afford to assign someone with your capabilities to routine patrol duties when critical specialized positions remain unfilled. Sarah felt the familiar tension between her desire for a normal civilian life and the reality that her specialized training would always create expectations and opportunities that pulled her toward more complex assignments. Chief, I understand the department's needs, but I'd like the opportunity to complete basic police training and gain patrol experience before considering specialized assignments. I believe that understanding standard police work will make me more effective in any future role. Hawkins nodded thoughtfully. That shows wisdom and humility, Chun, but it also represents a significant investment of training resources in someone who may need to be reassigned to specialized duties relatively quickly. A knock on the door interrupted the conversation. Captain Williams entered, followed by a man Sarah didn't recognize, tall, lean, with the bearing of someone accustomed to high-responsibility positions. Chief, I'd like you to meet Agent Martinez from the FBI's Regional Task Force. He's here to discuss some upcoming joint operations that may be relevant to our conversation with Recruit Chin. Agent Martinez stepped forward with professional courtesy. Chief Hawkins, Recruit Chun. I apologize for the interruption, but when Captain Williams mentioned your background, I realized we might have mutual interest to discuss. Sarah felt a sinking sensation. FBI involvement suggested that her SEAL identity was spreading beyond the academy, potentially creating the kind of high-profile attention she had hoped to avoid. Agent Martinez, what brings the FBI to our academy? Chief Hawkins asked. Chief, we're developing a joint task force to address increasing threats in this region. Drug trafficking with international connections, potential terrorism concerns, and organized crime activities that cross jurisdictional boundaries. These operations require officers with specialized training and proven capabilities in high-stress environments. Martinez turned towards Sarah. Recruit Chun, your SEAL background and training record suggest you might be exactly what our task force needs. Advanced tactical skills, operational experience, proven performance under pressure, and familiarity with joint military-civilian operations. Agent Martinez, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm focused on completing police academy training and learning civilian law enforcement procedures. I understand your position, but these threats don't wait for convenient timing. The task force is being formed now, and we need qualified personnel immediately. Chief Hawkins interjected. Agent Martinez, Recruit Chun still has 4 months of academy training remaining. Even if she were interested in task force assignment, she wouldn't be available until after graduation. Actually, Chief, that's why I'm here. The FBI has authority to expedite academy completion for recruits assigned to federal task forces. Recruit Chun could complete her remaining training through federal programs while simultaneously beginning task force operations. The room fell silent. Sarah realized that her SEAL background had created opportunities that could fundamentally alter her intended path toward routine police work. Federal task force assignment would mean returning to the kind of high-stakes, complex operations she had joined the police academy to escape. Agent Martinez, I need time to consider any such opportunities. My immediate goal is completing academy training and learning community policing. Martinez nodded. I understand, Recruit Chun, but I should mention that task force positions offer advanced training, federal credentials, and career opportunities that extend far beyond standard municipal police work. For someone with your background, it could represent the best way to utilize your existing skills while developing new capabilities. After Martinez left, Chief Hawkins addressed Sarah directly. Chun, you now have 3 potential paths forward. Complete academy training for standard patrol assignment, accept accelerated training for specialized department units, or consider federal task force opportunities. Each option has advantages and implications for your career development. Sarah felt the weight of decisions that would determine not just her immediate future, but the long-term direction of her civilian life. The anonymity and routine assignments she had sought were being replaced by high-visibility opportunities that would inevitably draw her back toward the kind of specialized operations she had hoped to leave behind. "Chief, what would you recommend?" Hawkins considered his answer carefully. "Chun, your SEAL training represents capabilities that are needed and valuable in today's law enforcement environment. Whether you use those skills in federal task forces, specialized police units, or routine patrol duties, they will make you a more effective officer and could save lives in critical situations." He leaned forward. "But I also understand your desire to learn standard police work and serve your community in more routine ways. The question becomes whether you can achieve those goals while also accepting that your background will create opportunities and expectations that go beyond basic patrol duties." Captain Williams added, "Sarah, your performance over the past 2 days has demonstrated that you can't hide your capabilities indefinitely. Your shooting and tactical skills will be recognized regardless of what assignment you accept. The question becomes whether you want to control how those skills are utilized or let circumstances dictate your role." As the meeting concluded, Sarah was given a week to consider her options and provide a decision about her preferred path forward. Chief Hawkins made it clear that the department would support whatever choice she made, but that her SEAL background would be factored into assignment decisions regardless of her preferences. Walking back to the academy training areas, Sarah reflected on how completely her situation had changed in just 3 days. Monday morning, she had been an anonymous recruit focused on blending in and learning basic police procedures. Now, she was the subject of attention from academy leadership, department administration, and federal agencies seeking personnel for specialized operations. The afternoon brought another unexpected development. During a routine academic session on criminal law, Sarah received a message to report to Captain Williams immediately. She found Williams in conversation with Detective Lieutenant Susan Rodriguez, commander of the department's SWAT unit. "Chun, Lieutenant Rodriguez has asked to meet with you based on reports about your tactical assessment performance." Rodriguez was a 20-year law enforcement veteran with extensive experience in special operations and crisis response. Her reputation for excellence and demanding standards had made the SWAT unit one of the most respected in the region. "Recruit Chun, I've reviewed your assessment scores and spoken with Officer Davies about your performance. I'm here to discuss potential assignment to our tactical unit after graduation." Sarah maintained her composure while internally noting that specialized assignment offers were multiplying faster than she could evaluate them. "Lieutenant, I appreciate the interest, but I haven't completed academy training yet. I understand that, Chun, but tactical unit selection typically begins well before graduation. We identify candidates early and provide additional training to ensure they're ready for operational assignment immediately after academy completion." Rodriguez pulled up performance data on her tablet. "Your shooting scores, tactical movement, stress management, and decision-making capabilities all suggest you'd excel in tactical operations. More importantly, your SEAL background indicates you understand the demands and responsibilities of specialized law enforcement work. Lieutenant, what would tactical unit assignment involve? High-risk warrant service, hostage rescue, terrorism response, joint operations with federal agencies, specialized training in advanced tactics, and equipment. Essentially, you'd be handling the most challenging and dangerous situations this department encounters." The description encompassed exactly the kind of high-stakes operations Sarah had hoped to move away from. But she also recognized that her SEAL training made her uniquely qualified for such work, and that refusing specialized assignments might not be realistic given her demonstrated capabilities. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, I'd like to complete basic academy training before considering specialized assignments. I want to understand standard police work before moving to tactical operations." Rodriguez nodded. "That shows good judgment, Chun. But I should mention that tactical positions don't come available often. If you're interested in this kind of work, now might be your best opportunity." As Rodriguez left, Captain Williams remained behind to speak with Sarah privately. "Sarah, you're receiving more specialized assignment offers in 1 week than most recruits see in their entire careers. Your SEAL background is opening doors that could define your law enforcement career." "Captain, I understand that, but I'm concerned about moving too quickly into specialized roles without understanding basic police work." "That's wise, but you should also consider that your background makes you uniquely qualified for assignments that could have significant impact on community safety. Sometimes the best way to serve is by accepting the responsibilities that match your capabilities, even if they're more complex than what you initially planned." That evening, Sarah sat in her room reviewing the day's developments. Federal task force opportunities, SWAT assignment possibilities, and administrative attention had replaced her careful anonymity with high-visibility career options that would reshape her intended path completely. The question was no longer whether she could maintain a low profile and blend into routine patrol duties. Her SEAL background had been revealed, her capabilities had been demonstrated, and opportunities for specialized assignment were multiplying daily. Tomorrow would bring new decisions about her future direction. But Sarah was beginning to understand that her SEAL training would continue to shape her civilian life regardless of her personal preferences. The challenge became finding a way to use those skills in service of her community while building the kind of normal life she had sought when leaving military service. Her exceptional shooting performance had answered the skeptical question, "Think she'll miss?" with definitive authority. Her tactical assessment had revealed capabilities that commanded respect and created opportunities. Now she faced the more complex question of how to balance her desire for routine civilian service with the reality that her specialized training made her valuable for assignments that would inevitably draw her back toward the high-stakes operations she had hoped to leave behind. 3 months later, Sarah stood at the podium in the police academy's graduation auditorium, preparing to address her fellow recruits as class valedictorian, an honor she had neither sought nor expected when she began the program. The journey from anonymous recruit to academy standout had transformed not just her prospects, but her understanding of how her SEAL background would shape her civilian law enforcement career. The weeks following her tactical assessment had brought a steady stream of opportunities, challenges, and revelations about the reality of transitioning from military special operations to civilian police work. Her initial goal of blending into routine patrol duties had proven impossible once her capabilities became known, but the alternatives had ultimately offered something more meaningful than she had originally envisioned. Chief Hawkins sat in the front row with other department leadership, federal representatives, and family members who had come to celebrate the graduating class. Agent Martinez was present, still hoping to recruit Sarah for federal task force operations. Lieutenant Rodriguez represented the SWAT unit that had extended multiple invitations for specialized assignment. The attention remained intense, but Sarah had learned to manage it while staying focused on her primary goal of serving her community effectively. Her speech had been carefully crafted to address not just her classmates, but the broader questions about identity, capability, and service that had defined her academy experience. Fellow graduates, instructors, family, and friends, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. 6 months ago, we entered this academy with different backgrounds, different motivations, and different expectations about what police work would demand of us. Today, we graduate with shared understanding of the responsibilities and opportunities that come with wearing this badge. She paused, scanning the assembled group of graduates who had become not just classmates, but friends who understood her journey from skepticism to respect and acceptance. Many of you know that my path to this moment was unconventional. I came here hoping to blend in, to learn quietly, and to begin a civilian career without drawing attention to my previous military service. That plan lasted exactly until our first marksmanship evaluation. Gentle laughter rippled through the audience. The story of Sarah's perfect shooting performance had become Academy legend, retold frequently as an example of how assumptions about capability could be completely wrong. The question that started this journey was simple. Think she'll miss? It was asked with skepticism, maybe even mockery, by classmates who had no reason to believe I could handle the challenges of police training. What none of us understood at that moment was that the question itself revealed something important about how we evaluate potential and make assumptions about capability. Jake Morrison, sitting in the front row of graduates, nodded with visible appreciation. His initial skepticism about Sarah had evolved into genuine respect and friendship, built through months of training where her willingness to help others had proven as impressive as her technical skills. I didn't miss those 5 shots, and the accuracy wasn't accidental or lucky. It came from years of training in environments where precision could mean the difference between mission success and failure, between protecting teammates and losing them. But what I learned during our academy training was that technical skill alone doesn't make someone an effective police officer. Sarah's speech continued, addressing the broader themes that had emerged during her academy experience. The tension between specialized capabilities and routine service. The challenge of building trust and relationships within a team. The responsibility that came with proven performance under pressure. Effective police work requires not just the ability to handle crisis situations, but the wisdom to build relationships that prevent crises from occurring. It demands not just tactical skills, but communication abilities that can de-escalate tensions and resolve conflicts peacefully. Most importantly, it requires understanding that our role is to serve the community in whatever capacity provides the greatest benefit, even if that capacity differs from what we originally planned. Captain Williams watched from her position with the academy staff, reflecting on the journey that had brought Sarah from secretive recruit to acknowledged class leader. Her SEAL background had created opportunities and expectations, but her character had determined how she responded to them. The decision-making process had been complex. Sarah had ultimately accepted assignment to a specialized community policing unit that would utilize her tactical skills while focusing on proactive crime prevention and community engagement. It represented a compromise between her desire for routine service and the reality that her capabilities were needed for more complex assignments. The federal task force opportunity remained open, with Agent Martinez making it clear that the offer would persist beyond graduation. Lieutenant Rodriguez had accepted Sarah's request for delayed SWAT assignment, understanding that community policing experience would make her a more effective tactical operator when she eventually joined the specialized unit. For those of you who may be wondering about my final assignment, I've accepted a position with our community response team, which combines proactive policing with specialized capabilities for complex situations. It's not the routine patrol assignment I originally sought, but it's also not the high-profile tactical role that my background might have suggested. Sarah looked directly at her classmates as she continued. What I've learned is that effective service sometimes requires accepting responsibilities that match your capabilities, even when those responsibilities are more complex than what you initially planned. The community needs officers who can handle routine calls professionally and compassionately, but it also needs officers who can respond effectively when situations exceed standard parameters. The speech concluded with recognition of the academy staff who had guided their training, appreciation for classmates who had become lasting friends, and acknowledgement of the families who had supported them through the challenges of police training. As graduates moved forward to receive their badges and certificates, Sarah reflected on the transformation that had occurred since that morning when doubtful recruits had questioned her shooting abilities. The woman who had tried to hide her SEAL background was being recognized as class valedictorian, with multiple specialized assignment opportunities and the respect of everyone who had worked with her during training. Chief Hawkins presented Sarah with her badge personally, taking a moment to speak privately with her. "Chun, you've exceeded every expectation since the day your capabilities became known. Your assignment to the community response team will utilize your specialized training while giving you the community policing experience you wanted. More importantly, you'll be positioned to take on greater responsibilities as opportunities arise. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the department's flexibility in finding an assignment that matches both my goals and the organization's needs." Chun, one final piece of advice. You've proven that exceptional capability combined with humility and dedication to service creates opportunities for meaningful impact. Don't be surprised if your career trajectory continues to exceed your original expectations. As the ceremony concluded and families gathered for congratulations and photographs, Sarah was approached by Tommy Rodriguez, the former security guard who had doubted her capabilities during that first shooting exercise. "Sarah, I owe you an apology that's 6 months overdue. I completely misjudged your potential, and I've learned a lot by watching how you handle the attention and opportunities that came with people discovering your background." "Tommy, there's nothing to apologize for. You had no reason to expect that the quiet recruit had SEAL training. What matters is that we all learn to work together and support each other during academy training." Maria Santos joined the conversation, adding her own perspective. "Sarah, what impressed me most wasn't your shooting or tactical skills. It was how you used those capabilities to help the rest of us improve our own performance. You could have kept your knowledge to yourself, but you shared it to make everyone better." The conversations continued throughout the afternoon, with classmates, instructors, and family members reflecting on the journey that had brought them to graduation day. For Sarah, the experience had been transformative in ways she hadn't anticipated when she decided to leave military service for civilian law enforcement. Agent Martinez made one final recruitment attempt as the ceremony ended. "Recruit Chun, or should I say Officer Chun now, the federal task force position remains available whenever you're ready to consider it. Your community policing experience will actually make you more valuable for our operations." "Agent Martinez, I appreciate the continued interest. If the opportunity is still available after I've gained some patrol experience, I'd be happy to discuss it further." Lieutenant Rodriguez also made a point of speaking with Sarah before leaving. "Officer Chun, the SWAT position will be waiting when you're ready. Your community policing assignment will give you valuable experience in civilian law enforcement, but don't wait too long. Tactical positions with your qualifications don't come available often." As evening approached and the graduation celebration wound down, Sarah drove to her apartment, reflecting on the path that lay ahead. Her assignment to the community response team would begin Monday morning, marking the transition from police academy recruit to sworn law enforcement officer. The specialized unit represented a compromise between her original goals and the opportunities created by her SEAL background. She would be handling community policing responsibilities while remaining available for situations that required tactical expertise. It offered the chance to build relationships and serve her community directly, while acknowledging that her specialized training made her valuable for more complex assignments. Her apartment felt different now. No longer the temporary housing of a recruit uncertain about her future, but the home of a police officer beginning a career that would inevitably involve challenges and opportunities she couldn't yet envision. The carefully maintained anonymity of her early academy days had been replaced by professional recognition and clear expectations for continued excellence. The evening news featured a brief segment about the police academy graduation, mentioning the diverse backgrounds and exceptional qualifications of the new officers joining the force. Sarah's story wasn't highlighted specifically, but her presence represented the kind of capable, dedicated personnel that modern law enforcement required. As she prepared for her first day as a sworn police officer, Sarah considered the questions that had shaped her academy experience. Think she'll miss had been answered definitively on a firing range 6 months ago. But more important questions had emerged about service, capability, and the responsibility that came with proven performance under pressure. Her SEAL background would continue to create opportunities and expectations throughout her law enforcement career. Federal task forces, specialized units, and high-profile assignments would remain possibilities that could reshape her professional path at any moment. But she had learned that exceptional capability combined with dedication to community service could create meaningful impact regardless of specific assignment. Monday morning would bring new challenges as she began patrol duties with the community response team. She would be serving the community she had hoped to protect, using skills developed through years of military training, while building the civilian law enforcement experience that would prepare her for whatever opportunities and responsibilities lay ahead. The journey from doubtful recruit to respected officer had proven that assumptions about capability could be completely wrong, that exceptional performance creates opportunities beyond original expectations, and that true service sometimes requires accepting responsibilities that exceed what was initially planned. Sarah had answered the skeptical question about missing her targets with perfect precision. Now she faced the more complex challenge of building a law enforcement career that honored both her SEAL training and her commitment to community service, knowing that exceptional capability combined with dedication to others could create opportunities for meaningful impact that extended far beyond what she had originally envisioned. Her story had become an inspiration for future police academy classes, demonstrating that backgrounds could be surprising, that capability often exceeded appearances, and that the best officers were those who combined technical excellence with genuine commitment to serving others. The quiet recruit who had tried to blend in had become a model for how specialized training could be used effectively in civilian law enforcement. The question, "Think she'll miss?" had been answered with 5 perfect shots. But the more important answer had come through 6 months of proving that exceptional capability, combined with humility and dedication to service, could transform not just individual careers, but the understanding of what effective police work required in an increasingly complex world.